There are moments in life that don't explode, they simply vanish, no warning, no explanation, no time to grasp what went wrong. Sometimes all it takes is a single phone call, a single footstep, and then nothing. A silence so heavy it crushes every assumption we ever had about safety, routine, and predictability. That moment when a phone call suddenly breaks is the exact point where normal life collapses. Everything before the interruption feels routine, a voice you recognize, a conversation that feels predictable. Then the shift hits, a pause that shouldn't be there, a tone that doesn't match the words, a background sound that instantly raises suspicion. When communication cuts mid-thought, the brain doesn't wait politely, it jumps straight into threat analysis. Humans are wired to detect danger through disruption, and an abruptly ended call is one of the strongest danger signals you can get. It forces you to confront the possibility that something went wrong in real time. The lack of context amplifies the fear because the mind starts filling in scenarios, and almost all of them lean dark. That single broken connection becomes the last verified moment of safety, and everything after it becomes an unknown filled with possibilities you can't ignore. A single footstep right before a disappearance isn't just background noise, it's a data point loaded with implications. Sound gives away position, direction, and intent, even if only for a split second. When that step is the last recorded action, it becomes the final trace of movement you can analyze, and that makes it disproportionately important. Was it fast or slow, cautious or confident, approaching or retreating? Each possibility branches into a different scenario, and none of them feel comforting. A lone footstep suggests proximity, someone was close enough to be heard, close enough to change the outcome. It also signals transition, the person was leaving a place, entering another, or reacting to something. That one step becomes the hinge between the known moment and the silent void that followed. It's the final physical clue before everything goes dark, and because nothing comes after it, the mind keeps looping that sound, trying to decode what it meant. Silence after a disturbing sound isn't empty, it's loaded with tension because the brain expects continuity. When something unsettling happens, we naturally brace for the next clue, another noise, a voice, a movement, anything that helps define what's going on. When none of that comes, the silence becomes hostile. It forces the mind into overdrive, searching for patterns that aren't there. Humans rely heavily on auditory cues to assess danger, so when sound disappears exactly when clarity is needed most, the absence itself feels like a threat. It's not peaceful or neutral, it's a gap that demands explanation. Every second of quiet magnifies the last sound heard, turning it into an obsession. The silence traps you with your own thoughts, pushing you to imagine what could be happening beyond that void. In situations like this, the lack of information is more destabilizing than any loud or obvious danger. When information cuts off abruptly, the human mind refuses to accept the blank space. It immediately starts constructing possibilities because uncertainty is psychologically harder to tolerate than even unpleasant truth. The brain drags out every detail, it remembers the tone of the voice, the background noise, the pacing of breaths, and tries to stitch together a narrative that explains the interruption. Instinct pushes you to search for logic even if none exists, yet that's why people replay the moment endlessly. They're trying to decode clues that might not be clues at all. This mental reconstruction isn't calm or rational, it's driven by fear, curiosity, and the need for closure. The mind fills gaps with scenarios that escalate quickly because danger-based assumptions evolved as a survival strategy. When the real sequence is missing, imagination takes over, often pushing you toward the darkest interpretation, simply because it feels like the safest one to prepare for. When someone disappears right after that final contact, the people left behind carry the full weight of uncertainty, and it doesn't let them rest. They're stuck replaying every second of the last interaction, wondering what they missed, blaming themselves for not noticing something that might not have even been there. The emotional load isn't dramatic, it's grinding. Daily routines get hijacked by constant what if loops, and even normal sounds or notifications trigger instinctive anxiety because they're waiting for answers that never come. Relationships strain because everyone processes fear differently, and some people shut down while others obsess. The absence of closure becomes its own kind of torment because you can't grieve, can't move on, and can't fully hope either. You're suspended between possibilities, and each new day without information tightens that psychological chokehold a little more, turning ordinary life into a cycle of dread and unresolved tension. The unresolved question is the part that never stops digging into people's minds because it represents everything that should have an answer but doesn't. When a situation ends in silence with no explanation, it leaves a permanent gap in the timeline, and humans are not built to live with gaps. The unknown becomes a weight that sits in the background of every thought. It doesn't matter how much time passes, how many theories are discussed, or how many searches are conducted, the absence of a definitive ending locks everyone into an unfinished story. That uncertainty becomes the real antagonist. It keeps people awake at night, forcing them to imagine every scenario from the most innocent to the most horrific, and because there's no proof to eliminate any possibility, the mind rotates through all of them in a loop that never fully stops. The question of what happened becomes more than a mystery, it turns into a psychological cycle. Humans crave narratives with conclusions because conclusions let us process, accept, and move forward. When an ending is missing, the event stays mentally open. Like a wound that never closes, people start doubting their own memories, wondering if they misheard something, misunderstood something, or missed some tiny detail that could have changed everything. That self-blame becomes part of the unresolved question too, because it adds layers that have nothing to do with facts, and everything to do with the emotional fallout of not knowing. Even ordinary life moments become contaminated by the open-ended nature of the situation. Every phone call, every unexpected sound, every delay, every unanswered message feels different because the unresolved question has rewired how the brain evaluates uncertainty. Instead of assuming everything is fine, the mind now jumps to the worst-case scenario, because it's already lived through something where silence meant danger. That lingering doubt shapes behavior, relationships, and trust long after the event. What makes the unresolved question so powerful is that it has no boundaries. It follows people into their routines, their conversations, their sleep, their memories, and even their hopes. It becomes a constant companion, reminding them that something critical happened and the truth is still out there, untouched, unavailable, and capable of reshaping everything the moment it finally emerges.